Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Andrew with Fact HVAC, doing another episode of In Good Company. Today we have Jason Wootten with Family Tree Estate Planning. I had to remember that a few different times. Got that mixed up a lot. So, Jason, thanks for coming and hanging out with us, man.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. So, like always, we just kind of want to get to know you, kind of what got you into the business, and then really just kind of hang out and talk for a little bit. So, family estate planning, when a lot of people think about that and that concept, it's, wills, and they think, I don't have to worry about that till a long time from today.
Yeah.
What do you find in your industry to help people understand that it's a more immediate concern than something way down the road?
Unfortunately, I think the reality is it becomes a concern for families once they've actually lost a loved one, and they have one of two experiences. Either somebody comes in and they say, mom passed away, dad was already gone, and they didn't have anything in place, and we just went through this horrendous process, and I don't want my kids to ever have to go through that. And the other best clients for us are the ones that call up and say, mom and dad had a trust in place, mom just passed away, and it was so incredibly easy, and I want to have that same experience. I think one of the biggest challenges that I face in life in terms of generating clients is people have this feeling that by doing their planning, there's some level of finality to it,
right.
Or my goodness, I'm going to pass away if I actually go through and do this. And the reality is the whole premise of doing estate planning is that it's fluid and that it evolves through life with you. So I think if I have a gift and a skill, it's being able to take a really complicated subject and make it easy to understand to the average person and explain how easy it is to keep things up to date over time.
Nice. So in my situation, obviously every episode I have a different pair of shoes. That's kind of my estate planning plan.
Okay.
Can we protect those?
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's a whole section of your trust is dedicated to your personal belongings. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So do you find, all kidding aside, but do you find that, some people don't even think about all the different things that they have and what to include? That sometimes they think maybe, if I just write all my stuff goes to, like Ron Swanson, all my stuff goes to the man who killed me, whatever it is, right? Do you find people don't get real specific when outlining things?
So I think there were two questions there. The first is, without a doubt, people always forget about something that they had.
Right.
And that's actually a really difficult part of estate planning is we can go through and draft the best documents that, can be created and make sure that everything that you can tell me about, we get into the name of that trust. But if you have an account that you forgot about, or that, let's say Chase ticked you off and you moved to Bank of America and you never told Bank of America about that trust, then there's this asset that gets left out. And, unfortunately, that's when they still get tied up in probate. So on that side of it, going through trying to list everything can be a challenge. And I think that's why it's so important that you actually plan for it. Because if you're going to forget about it, the kids aren't going to know about it.
Right.
And, so without a doubt, putting together a good plan where you cover everything is something that I suggest for everyone. And the earlier you do that in life, the less likely it is that you forget about something. Because if this is a deathbed, or you just got a negative diagnosis, all of a sudden you're trying to think of everything in a stressful moment, right. And you forget about the online account that you set up at Capital One online because their interest rate was half a point better 3 years ago.
Right. Now, do you because again you're a planner, you're just not a singular transaction, because of the fluidity of life and all of that stuff, do you see that's one of your big strong skills as a company, is helping people through those different phases of their life, and making sure all of those things are in order before? Yeah,
I think that in my own life, actually, a big shift that I've had. Actually, this month is 15 years in business, which is
wow, that's
crazy
awesome
for me. I started with all the arrogance of a 23-year-old. I thought I was smarter than everyone else and I knew more. But I think that a big shift that I've had in my own life is, when I started the company, I didn't have kids. My only responsibility in life was I had a mortgage, and if I failed, I'd have to, go and ask somebody for a real job. But what I've realized is when I started the company, I marketed only to people that were older and retired and established. And now I'm aware that my friends need to do this. My friends that are married, my friends that, especially if you have kids.
Right.
And it's something that so few people think about, because let's be honest, the probability that you lose both yourself and a spouse if you're married, very, very slim. But the reality is that we see it,
Right.
And that it happens. And even in that situation, I assure you that with a husband and a wife, if you lost the spouse early, you're so stressed out now about what would my spouse have wanted. One of the things we do in estate planning is talk about, cremation versus burial. They're hard conversations to have, but in reality, I just recently lost my dad, and it was really nice for my sister and I to be able to talk about it and know that, hey, he definitely wanted, cremation versus burial. And, being able to write those things out just makes it a lot easier for the family members and the loved ones afterwards. And,
Right.
the kid planning and the, changing over time. I started my own estate plan without kids. Now I have kids. Someday, there will be grandkids in the picture, and I will have made, 4 or 5 amendments to it over time, but
Right.
it's fluid.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, you said you just recently lost your dad.
Yeah.
And that he had a long battle with an illness, right?
Yeah. Dad battled cancer for about 5 years. He was actually only given 4 years, but my dad was never on time, so we didn't expect him to, actually go on anybody else's timetable. He was on his own. But
Nice.
yeah, man, cancer is a brutal, just a brutal thing to watch. He went from my size and stature down to about 125 pounds. So
Wow.
if you can picture that.
That's crazy. And you were really close with your dad too, right?
Yeah, so I don't know. We might clip this part of it. I don't know.
That's
So some days.
yeah. Hey, I feel you there. It's one of those. But when it comes to that estate planning, whenever there's long-term illnesses or things like that, I think some people forget. You never know when that's going to happen, right? And so having all that stuff in order before is massively important and protects you. That's one less thing you have to worry about in dealing with those things.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, I know you outside of just the estate planning. This is some heavy stuff that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis when you're talking to clients. How do you kind of get out of that space, in dealing with the end in the middle of everybody's story? Like, how do you get into a better mindset?
I think that it's just what I had said before. It's getting people to really focus on the present, that yes, this is something that helps you down the road. And I would say to a certain extent, I'm borderline, I feel like I'm almost numb to it, because on a weekly basis, we get the phone call from the, the daughter or the widow, where they're crying, and we come at it from a standpoint of, of course, our condolences immediately. But the great news is because they're a client of ours, we know that they put everything in order properly. Right. And, usually in about a 10 to 15 minute phone conversation, I can talk with somebody and really just kind of help let them know that take a big deep breath and exhale and focus on yourself. And so I find it so easy because, you know that you've actually helped somebody. You've done a service that really benefits, these loved ones. And so I go to sleep feeling pretty good about that.
Nice. Now, again, 15 years in this industry and with this company.
Yeah.
You were 23?
Yeah.
How did you get started in this world at 23?
All right. So when I was in high school, I ran a sandwich shop in South Scottsdale. It was called Cousin Subs. I got the job there the summer going into my freshman year of high school, and I worked there the entirety of my high school career. And when I graduated, I started taking community college classes. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, and they came and they offered me the position of being that store's manager. And man, I thought I was doing really well. I think I was getting paid like $30,000 a year. And I woke up early, smelled like onions. It was fantastic. And so this is my first year out of high school now. And one of the guys who had worked for me, he was supposed to cover a Friday shift. His name's Tony Gonzalez. I owe so much of my life to this guy, and he's still one of my good friends to this day. But he was supposed to work that upcoming Friday, and there was a high school football game. And, he was really social, and he wanted to go. And I said, that's fine, but you're on the schedule. So get somebody to cover it, or you've got to come in. Well, everybody that worked there were all high school students, so everybody wanted to go to the game. And so what ends up happening is he just no-shows that Friday. He doesn't come to work. And even though he's one of my friends, I realize at that moment I've got to fire him. So I end up firing him. We go opposite directions. And he comes in maybe 2 months later. And he's like, he goes, Woot, because that's what most of my friends call me. They call me Woot. Last name's Wootten. He goes, Woot, you firing me is one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, I got this job where all I do is make phone calls, and I'm making twice as much as I was coming here, smelling like onions, going home. And I go, no way, no you didn't. I was like, show me your paycheck stub. And it must have been his payday.
So this was your Wolf of Wall Street interaction?
Literally, he pulls out his check stub and he puts it on there, and I flip it around, and like I'm looking at it, and like I'm smelling myself in that moment, and I look at it, I'm like, he really is. He's making more money than I am, and I go, give me an interview, with your boss, and his boss was this guy named Robert, and so I walked into this company, kind of found out what they did. He gave me a phone script, and he said, go home, study this. He goes, but what makes you think you'd be any good at it? And I just looked at him and I said, well, I know Tony's work ethic and I know my work ethic, and if Tony's good at it, I'm going to be great at it. And kind of smiled and joked,
right.
But like I meant it,
Right.
and that's part of that arrogance that
Yeah.
helped get me to that point. And sure enough, I got a job there, and it's literally a company that does exactly what I do today. But I started in their phone room, and there were two partners. Long story short, the partnership fell apart. One of the guys who left went and started his own company. He only called two people from that company to come and work for him. And I was incredibly blessed that, he saw something in me, and he wanted to, invest that time into somebody that he thought would be great for him for a really long time. And unfortunately, my arrogance was like, well, if you're going to pay me 30%, what are you doing for the other 70%? And, like I said, I think that taking risks is so easy in life when you're young.
Right.
If I had to, wash my hands of everything and try to start something brand new today, it's a different conversation, right? You've got kids, you've got the responsibilities, but at 23, I was like, man, I know enough about this company. I have contacts. I can use the same attorneys that they're using. I can create a mailer. I can make a phone call. I can talk to somebody about trusts, and it really worked out well. I wish I could write a book, but so much of it I think is just dumb luck, working hard, and treating people well. And I think that that's a key to success.
That's awesome. So at 23, you move into that new partnership. Now, did you just basically take over the company, or then did you spin off from there?
No. So the second company that I went to, partnership fell apart. I went with another guy who had started his own company, who, big dreams, incredible salesman, just the biggest heart of anybody you could ever ask for. His name was Jim Plassett. He passed away a few years back, but he gave me the confidence and taught me so much. But he was also kind of like one of those absentee owners sometimes, where he was out, so I was effectively doing all of the things that he was doing.
Right.
So he was just having some issues, and I could see the writing on the wall that the company was falling apart. And all that I had to come up with was a name, file an LLC, and pay for a mailer. I literally got my company off the ground for probably less than $5,000, and luckily I had that saved up. And literally sitting in my living room of my first house, I'm on the cell phone with my sister, like bouncing names off of it with her, of what the name of the company could be, to file this LLC, and just literally thought about my family, and I thought that's what you're doing it for. And I was like, man, family tree, that's who you're actually planning things for, because it's not always your immediate family. It can branch out quite a bit, and eventually led us to the motto of protecting every branch of your family tree. And I think that that's the whole point of the trust, is the assets that you have, you want to make sure that goes to your own lineage, and the state doesn't get involved, attorneys don't get involved.
Right.
So I love what I do. I got
That's awesome.
Incredibly blessed, and I don't know anything else. My skill set in life is so limited, but I'm really good at that.
That's awesome. And I mean, it's great work. You're helping people. You're really providing something of huge value. Like you said, it's not just the asset protection and all that, but it's keeping it within the family, not allowing it to go to the state, which can then just turn into a huge nightmare.
Yeah.
So I have a question about assets, because I have a weird hobby, and that's I
thought we weren't going to bring this up in front of the camera.
I know.
Oh.
This one's the PG version. I'm obsessed of searching for lost assets and property in my last name.
Yep.
So I go through every state and try to see if there's something around.
Probably easier than being like a Jones or a Johnson.
Yeah. So I found 55 cents to my name.
Okay.
But my grandmother, we found $15,000.
Really? From what? Like what was it?
It was a sale of a property through something that she never claimed.
Wow.
And so, but my grandmother died, 8 years ago.
Yep.
when everybody kind of, I know several people who kind of always look for that kind of stuff. What happens? Is that just gone? Is that just property of the state?
Well, that's the whole point. Is yes, it goes to the state, but there's a process to be able to actually claim that. So we'll use grandma as the example. If nobody else is showing up trying to claim it, and it's already been there for a long period of time, I think that your probability is much higher. But realistically, you have to then prove that lineage, that that you were actually related to that person.
Oh, nice.
I'm sure more so than just, hey, look, my name's Joust as well.
Right.
Because I could do that too. We could go change our, figure out who's got the highest amount, been
Right.
there the longest. To be able to go through, say, here's a copy of Grandma's will, here's her death certificate, here's my mom's, death. I'm assuming mom's gone if you're trying to claim,
No, I'm just a weirdo and like to find weird stuff.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I actually don't even know where to go and look for those things. We'll have to talk about
Yeah,
that.
it's really it's just a weird thing. It's like unclaimed property, and you can do it like every state has their own website.
Interesting.
Where you just look it up and.
Well, we've definitely had situations where people have had like those accounts that like they're a client of ours did a trust, and like I said, they forgot about like a credit union account.
Right.
But after a long period of time, if there's no transactions on an account, they end up basically freezing, closing the account, and they send it off to the state because nobody is watching that money. So,
yeah. So like on my
that is
last,
common.
yeah, like on my last name, like I found my other grandmother. It was like 35 cents on a refund from, Capital One Bank. Like
you're going to spend more money on the stamp.
Yeah, you're
the
postage, but it was yeah, it's just a weird thing. You lose my
That's
wife's name, my last name, and I start looking to see what's out there.
That should just be a service. Like that could be a side hustle. That's set up. Yeah.
Claim your millions of dollars. Just pay me $100 and I'll search for
Right,
it.
give me a percentage.
Right. So outside of the estate planning world, you said you have a daughter.
I do. I have a 12-year-old daughter. She'll be 13 in January. Her name's Madeline. She's amazing. She's a competitive gymnast, and
Nice.
All of the confidence in the world in that little one. Beautiful little girl. So I think that's like so many challenges in life, and
Right.
I think that like every aspect of parenting, there's challenges. But the one that I'm experiencing is, the pretty popular girl who wants to be involved, and she likes that attention, and just trying to like reel them in a little bit, but still letting them go out and make their own mistakes. And you can't protect them from everything, but
Right.
you want to feel like you're doing things right. I like to tell everybody that like I'm a slightly better than average dad. It just means that they're still going to end up in therapy, but they'll probably be able to work through it. So
Yeah, there you go.
we'll see.
How is that transition? So my son is going to be 3.
Okay.
So I'm dreading the teenage years. How is that transition into the teenage years going?
So far, so good. I mean, we've had a couple of instances where like, I just want to grab her by her shoulders and like just remind her like you're a 12-year-old child. Like we've had a couple of those, but I mean honestly, I'm very blessed. We haven't yet. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to watch this in like a year and be like, you had no idea. But then I also have a 10-year-old son, and he's me to a T. And I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this at some point if your little man ends up with your same personality type, and that is just genetically, like he thinks like me, he walks like me, his mannerisms are like me, and he looks like me. I saved quite a bit of money on a paternity test, actually.
Right.
But there's some skills that we have as entrepreneurs that are amazing skills to have that help us as adults that are really challenging in a child. And, the stubbornness, having to learn things your own way or try it your own way. Actually, on my Instagram page, it's kind of funny. We went bowling the other day. And, I'm sitting here trying to show him, like, bud, you put your hand behind the ball, you throw it flat. And he looks at me and goes, no, I don't do it that way. And I go, but that's the way you're supposed to do it. And he plays baseball. So he grabs it with his 2 fingers and like it's a baseball. And he walks up and he like throws it sideways. And he had bumpers up, but like it hits the bumper and it hits the middle pin and they all knock down. And he just walks back with this little smirk. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I told you my way works. And like, I don't know how to argue with it because he's right. But yeah, he's a quick wit. Man, he tests me every day of my life. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's very cool. So obviously, thanks for coming and hanging out with us.
Yeah.
Where can everybody find you?
So our website is familytreeplanning.com. You can always call the office up as well, 602-795-8000. Call up. The first thing we ever do is completely education based. So there's never a fee for having a consultation with somebody where we can just talk about wills, trusts, probate, how everything relates to your own situation. Really decide together if it's a good fit, and if it's a good fit, we'd love to get to work with you.
Nice. Take clients out for golf. I know.
Not so much, unfortunately. I should be better at that.
You should, because you could hustle a lot of people. Because
Yeah, we golfed one time together, and to this day I'm upset about it because I tracked the scores, so it actually helped my handicap. But I haven't played that well again since, and we had a marketing tournament, and it messed up my numbers. Yeah, it was awful.
I'll take it as good luck for that.
Thank you.
But awesome, man. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us.
Thank you for having me. Hey, did we want to talk about HVAC at all?
No.
No, all right.
No. That's part of the In Good Company.
All right, I like it.
Nothing. It's not as cool.
I like this more when we talk about me. I like this.
Yeah, it's to shine the light. I know you have a problem with humility. You are the most humble person in the room, so
Thank you.
I'm sure you like that. But yeah, other than that, man, thanks for coming and hanging out with us.
Thank you, sir.
And yeah, Steve, we're out.
Awesome. Appreciate it. It was fun.